iHeartRadio presents Podversations, a weekly discussion with the biggest names and influencers in podcasting.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us again. This is the iHeartPodcast Network Speaker Series. We try to take a half an hour every week, stop down and take a breath and talk to creators, producers that we are in partnership at iHeartMedia, but also that we are fans of, that we deeply admire, that we think just have incredible stories to tell. We started this about a year ago. We saw that the world was moving into quarantine. We were going to be a little more less connected, a little more disconnected. And we wanted to try to bridge that a little bit and set up a space every week where we could talk to people. And it developed into this awesome 30-minute session every week. We've had folks on here from Malcolm Gladwell to Paris Hilton talk about what they do, where they come from, why they do what they do. Today's session is truly awesome and special for us. Martha Stewart, thank you so much for taking a half hour out of your week and talking to us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be talking to you. Later, one of my favorite how stuff works.
That's right. Well, talk about origin stories. So we'll get into yours because I think it's much more interesting than mine. You have such an incredible background. Like, what's great about podcasting, to anchor this a little bit, is everybody comes from a different job. No one started out yet, at least, as a podcaster. It's not a degree you can get in college. And so that makes for brainstorming in this medium and content development and the conversations you have with people, it makes them really interesting. Everybody's bringing different stuff to the table. But like, you've done everything. You've been a model, a stockbroker, a babysitter, if the internet is right, and the internet is always right. When somebody approaches you and says, "What do you do?" How do you answer this question?
Well, it's actually quite easy. I am a curious teacher, and and that's what I really think I am, is a teacher. I have taught cooking, I have taught gardening, I have taught homekeeping, I've taught crafting, I've taught entertaining, I've taught everything that has to do with flower arranging and flower design. I've taught weddings. I've taught. I mean, go through life and life's lessons, and I have been a teacher in most of those categories. So that's the easiest way for me to respond to a question like that. And it's because I really am very, very interested in all those subjects. I also, as you mentioned, I was a stockbroker. I've been a babysitter. I was one of 6 kids, so I learned early on. I was second oldest, so I learned early on how to be a babysitter, and I was a very good babysitter. Except one night I fell asleep, and I had a job, and the owners came back. The parents came back really late, and I was fast asleep. They had to shake me for like 5 minutes to wake me up, and I lost that job because you're not guarding our children. You're supposed to be awake when we return from home. I don't care what you do when you're, And so that was bad, but that happens. And so I love to teach, and I think a good teacher has to be a really good learner, because you can't teach without learning your subject matter ahead of time. So that's where my curiosity comes in, and I wouldn't dare try to teach something that I really didn't know.
Yeah, I was the last of 7 kids growing up. I think I was on the other side of that spectrum of.
You're the baby. You were baby Laura in our family.
I think somebody like Martha was supposed to be babysitting me, and they were really asleep watching TV or something like that. Who taught you to be a teacher? I don't mean to ask like a.
Well, both my parents, as they graduated from college, were teachers. Mom taught 6th grade in Nutley, New Jersey, until she was of retirement age. And my dad taught all kinds of things, music and gymnastics and physical education, until he had like probably 2 or 3 kids, and then he had to go to real work, because in those days teachers were paid a pittance. And so he went and became a salesman, first First, he sold beer. Can you imagine? He worked for Schaefer.
Oh,
And,
wow.
yeah, Schaefer beer. And those are detail salesmen. I don't know if, I don't even know what detail means, but then he went into pharmaceuticals and he sold for Pfizer. Can you imagine being a salesman for Pfizer nowadays with the COVID virus that they've created? Probably more exciting now than when my dad was a salesman. So he at least made a better living as some people I've read in some bios of myself that he was a drug salesman. He was not a drug salesman. He was a pharmaceutical salesman. Was
storytelling a big part of your upbringing? Because like salesmanship is a lot of storytelling, right?
That was, I really likened my father to Willy Loman, and that's not complimentary. In a way, it is, because Willy Loman is such an engaging character. I don't know, you know the play, of course, right?
Oh yeah,
The Salesman, and Arthur Miller, right? Is that Arthur Miller?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's Arthur Miller. I just want to make sure that I'm not saying something stupid. But Dad was Willy Loman. He was a big talker, a handsome man, beautifully dressed. He left the house every morning in a gorgeous suit with a gorgeous tie and a shirt probably ironed by me, because I loved ironing my father's shirts, and that's what he did. But he had the stories to tell, and I think I get my ability to speak nicely and clearly and sensibly from my dad. He was also a very good spokesman. So he was the scoutmaster. He loved getting dressed up in his Indian headdress, Indian Scouts, and he would sit on stage bare chested with paint all over him, acting as a Native American. So you know, that part was really fun. I loved my dad. And my mom was, she was always schoolmarm, always, but she was pretty sexy because pictures of her, she's gorgeous. My mother was gorgeous. Even after 6 kids, she could still wear a 2-piece bathing suit, you know. Yeah, so they were fun. They were fun, interesting, smart, and they encouraged us to do what we like to do.
Which is still unique, and was even more unique back then. Sort of like, you know, what are you passionate about, as opposed to, I think you should be a doctor or a priest or a banker.
One brother turned out to be a dentist, a cosmetic dentist, and he is a fine craftsman. He's retired now from dentistry, but he is still creating the most beautiful, like 18th century American furniture. He cuts the wood, he ages it, and he has a workshop bigger than my whole house with fine tools. And he's won decoy carving contests. He makes Tiffany lamps out of the old Tiffany glass. He's really great. And another brother, well, he's a Vietnam, not a casualty, but he survived Vietnam in a harsh way. But he's does his thing. My sister Kathy's a scratch golfer now down in Austin, Texas, and she took up golfing when she was like 50, I think, and she's a fantastic golfer. So we're a bunch of individuals. None of us are alike. The kids were all very different from one another.
I think it's funny when I talk to my mom about being a good parent. She says the best thing you can do is treat each kid as individually as the individuals that they are. Try to really treat them.
Nice mother. See, my mother was the same. She had no favorites. We were all equal in every single way in her mind. Dad was a little different. I was his favorite. And I actually didn't like being the favorite, because then I got picked on by my siblings. But I was the favorite.
I'm hearing you talk about people's jobs, your siblings' jobs. It's interesting to me, and your dad's job, the way you kind of, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the way you kind of elevate their careers. Like, he's not a salesman, he's a storyteller. He's not a dentist, he's a craftsman. I don't know where this came from. Maybe you can tell us, but like this, when did home, the concept of home, whether it's food or design or just the style of one's life, when did that become a thing that you wanted to elevate?
Well, I had several influencers. my mother-in-law, I got married when I was 19 years old, so I really didn't have much experience in building a home or creating an environment of my own. I had my own little room at home in Nutley, New Jersey, 86 Elm Place. Remember that address because it's going to be a new business soon.
All right.
The 86 Elm. But so at 19, I was put under the influence of a mother-in-law who was a phenomenal decorator. And she had the wherewithal, lots of money. They lived on Park Avenue in an amazing apartment. So I started to learn a lot about interior design, decorating, furniture, antiques. We had no antiques in our house growing up. We had some vintage stuff, but nothing was antique. So I learned that from her. In our first apartment, I started to go to auctions. She said, "Oh, you can get the best buys at Sotheby's and Christie's," and she was right. I bought beautiful things, Sheraton sideboards and fabulous Hepplewhite chairs for a pittance at these auctions. So I started to develop a style of my own in a home of my own, and that got me interested. But then I got distracted by Wall Street. And my father-in-law was a stockbroker. He had a seat on the New York Stock Exchange. And I decided I was going to go, and I started investing in a few little stocks, and got very interested in finance and making money. And I joined a young firm on Wall Street, and I stayed there for about 7 years.
Wow.
You've read Kafka, The Metamorphosis, right?
Yeah.
Every 7 years, something bad happens. Well, my jobs changed every 7 years. So from stockbroker, I went into catering. I lasted there, probably about 7 or 8 years. I wrote my first book. Then I just got the idea of maybe starting a company like Martha Stewart Living. And then the magazine first, Martha Stewart Living. Then the media came in, and I started a real company, and went public on the New York Stock Exchange. All kinds of good stuff happened. So it happened on kind of a 7-year schedule. So then, of course, that the starting the magazine was the big deal, because I hit a chord in America. I really believe that I was the fine example of an American housewife, an American homemaker.
Yeah.
And I like to call myself a homemaker rather than a housewife, because at that time women were going to work. They were still trying to take care of their homes, raise their children, take care of the husband, all of that stuff. So the homemaker became and homemaking became a verb for me. Homemaking, because you're really making a home for your family. And that struck a chord, because I was giving people visuals, I was giving them recipes, I was giving them lots of content, lots of ideas, and it really did work. It worked. And
it's
then
incredible to me. Like, it's really incredible, the obviously, but the authenticity of it is incredible to me. I remember the first Zoom call that we did when you were thinking about podcasting and you wanted to know what iHeartRadio did in the medium and how we could support you. We were on Zoom, and you were about a minute in. We were like, you joined and you said, "Sorry, I'm a minute late. I was making a rhubarb pie." And here we are today doing a Zoom, and you're surrounded by these beautiful sounds of birds in your background, in your life. It's this very authentic thing that you bring to the table. Like, it's amazing to me. And I think more than anything in the last year, as we've all moved home and had to reinvent, spend more time, more focus on that concept of home, where you live, what you do there, what it means to you. And I don't just mean redesigning that particular corner of the house, but actually thinking about the
orchids that I grew.
Exactly.
I grew these. I have wonderful cymbidiums and dendrobiums and lady slippers and all kinds of stuff. But this is life. This is my life, and it certainly is authentic.
Yeah.
I have 5 greenhouses full of great stuff, and I spend a lot of time in those places, because every day I get up and I can learn, and then I can teach, and then I can show, and it's just so nice. And this last year, the pandemic, has not been bad for me.
Yeah.
I lost 20 pounds.
Sure.
It's good. Losing weight because I ate at home. I cooked at home. I didn't go out. I didn't go drinking with my friends and eat a big fat meal. But I cooked for friends, and I cooked for I had detainees for the first, I think I cooked 90 meals or something for the detainees because we were so scared, and they had to live here. They couldn't go home. They had to live on my property. So before we learned how to cope with the masks and everything else. So it's been a kind of an interesting year. But I'm lucky. I live on a beautiful farm where there are gardens and chickens and peacocks and turkeys and horses and donkeys. I'm lucky.
Do you feel like the rest of the world is always like catching up to you a little bit? What I mean by that is sort of you had this notion of like, guys, home is important. It's an idea that's important. It's more important than you think. And now the world seems to get that better.
Well, I got a very interesting fact from Meredith, who publishes my magazine now. They license the content of my magazine, and they are publishing it on a monthly basis. With I'm still the founding editor, and I still write my columns. They just told me that our YouTube channel, the Martha YouTube channel, is their best performing YouTube channel of all the Meredith properties, and they say it's because the young who use YouTube so much are really visiting my content because they want to learn from authentic expert. And that's what I am now. I think joining forces with Snoop Dogg on our Martha and Snoop's potluck dinner party really brought in a whole new demographic, a younger audience, and doing the Justin Bieber roast, which got billions of views. Just being on that, which was not approved by my company, by the way. They did not want me to go to California and do a Justin Bieber roast because they said, you're going to be roasted too, Martha, and they're going to make you look just as bad as you're going to make Justin Bieber look. And I had no idea because I had never watched one of those roasts in my life. And so I just went out there, freewheeling, and it was so much fun. And I got to really re-engage with Snoop Dogg, who had been a guest on my show. And that changed my demographic.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Good. It was good because I have that kind of sixth sense about where do you go next? What do you do next? Try something new every day. Don't go down the same street every single day. Go, take a detour. You're going to learn something new.
Totally.
And that is a motto of mine. Learn something new every day. And
I feel like one of those next things is a podcast. This is my favorite part of this half hour is we end up talking about podcasting like this much because there's so much other stuff I want to ask.
It's all about investigating how other people have evolved in their careers. And that's what my podcast is going to be about. We have identified more than 3,000 people who have worked for Martha Stewart over the years. And I love all my employees. Well, not all, but most of my employees. I probably don't love all of them, but so many of them have done amazing things. So we're going to be investigating what they did at Martha, what they did before Martha, what they've done after Martha, and even some of them, what are they still doing at Martha? Because we have some real great talent at Martha. And they all deserve to be really, talked to and let them talk about their amazing careers, their amazing development, self-development, their learning processes, and in order to get ahead in an entrepreneurial world. That's what it's all about.
It's really cool. I mean, you have this legacy, this platform where 3,000 people is a lot to have a sort of a pay it forward model on. It's a lot of people. It's a big ripple effect. And so we were really, really grateful and psyched to jump in with you on this podcast because I think it's a great medium for authentic, genuine storytelling. That's a great idea.
And when I listen to podcasts, and I have a few that I'm able to listen to in the car because I'm in the car a lot. When people say, where do you live? Before COVID, it was in my car because I commute to New York, and it's a minimum of an hour each way, and sometimes with traffic a lot more. But what an amazing medium for a captive person in a car, in in a plane, anywhere you go nowadays. And I like to always be hearing something and learning something. So and I can read in the car too, but sometimes, you just want to relax and I don't drive. I do drive, but I don't drive myself too.
Yeah.
So I can listen to a podcast. I can knit. I took up knitting during COVID. I have made baby hats for my friends where all their babies. And it's so much fun. I'm a busy person.
Yeah.
I
believe that.
I'm already starting to fidget because I don't sit still.
I believe this. I can tell you, I did not take up knitting during quarantine, but I did make a lot of podcasts. But this is where what is already a pretty cool day job just becomes a dream job, is to be able to see creators like Will Ferrell, Shonda Rhimes, Malcolm Gladwell, and of course yourself jump into this meeting.
I here and slept at my guest house. And I had never met her before, and she comes with her sister, who is her art director, and she was staying at a local hotel and hated it. So my friend she was looking for a house, and so my friend called up and said, "Can Shonda stay at your house?" And I said, "Well, I'm dying to meet her. I can't wait." And so she came, and she stayed, I think, 2 or 3 nights at my guest house, and she was fantastic, working all night long. She's a workaholic, boy. Oh boy.
Yeah. Yeah, we've built a slate of podcasts with her and Shondaland Audio. We actually just launched 2 great ones, the Laverne Cox Show and then the Bridgerton Behind the Scenes podcast.
Yeah. I haven't gotten to listen to Bridgerton yet, but I watched the entire series. I binge watched.
It's great.
I binge watched it, and it was a little shocking. But.
Oh yeah, it pretends to be light fare, but it's actually really disruptive.
It is
in sneaky ways. Yeah,
very disruptive, and she's like that. She's fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic. She's been an amazing partner. But look, I will wrap on just saying thank you so much. I know that you have a lot going on. I appreciate you taking a half hour to talk to us. It's been so enjoyable. And I think a lot of folks cannot wait for this podcast to drop in the next couple months. It's a great medium. You will make it even better. And the idea for this show, like you laid out, is just terrific to talk about that ripple effect of you on other people's lives. So really appreciate it, Martha.
So very much. And I look forward to starting in on it and really making it as fabulous as I think it's going to be.
Thank you again. Stay safe. Everybody, please come back next week. We will see you again. I appreciate it. Thanks again, Martha.
Thank you.
Podversations is a production of iHeartRadio. You can find more from the biggest names in podcasting on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.